The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
In the Idaho Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, we have a right to life, we have a right to defend life.
This legislation is centered on meeting the needs of Idaho families.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
The courts have long held that our ability to transfer title on real property benefits society as a whole.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
I feel like we're back to an unappointed board that gets to decide who is essential and who is non-essential.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
And for me, it's about a couple things. It's about food security, it's about national security, and it's about preserving American exceptionalism.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Welcome, Idaho Signal. It's January 15, 2024, and welcome to the program. We have a jam-packed show for you today. There's been a lot of activity happening at the House today, and I am thrilled to bring on a few guests to talk about what's been going on there. This morning in the House State Affairs Committee, Representative Jaron Crane brought forth the library bill that got printed last week. There was public testimony for well over an hour, maybe two. And we have right now with us Representative Crane online. There he is. Representative, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much, Matt.
Okay, thank you for taking time out to speak with us today. I wanted to make sure that everybody understood exactly what your bill does. Because even when you presented the bill today, there were a few people that stood up to give public comment, and maybe they were just reading off of their prepared notes, but it seems like there's still an awful lot of confusion out there about what your bill actually does, and what you're hoping to achieve with it. So I want to make sure we have an opportunity here to get you clean on the record on what this bill does and how it differentiates from last year's bill. So I'll let you take it away here for a second.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it was a great hearing this morning. It was neat to see people from all over Idaho. We had folks from Post Falls, Idaho Falls, all over the state come and share their experiences, share their thoughts. I noticed there was a little bit of a trend with certain folks that they hadn't read the legislation. And, it's so important because I changed a couple of key components. If you recall with House Bill 314, we had a penalty in 314 that had $2,500 in damages. We have lowered that all the way down to $250 in damages. And you'll see that on page 3, line 17, that we've lowered that down to $250. Currently, Matt, in Idaho statute 1815-14, if you handed this exact same material to any child on the corner of 8th and Main, under Idaho statute 1815-14, that was passed and is still law from 1972, Idaho law, you would go to jail for up to 1 year and you would face a penalty for up to $1,000. So this legislation, we are not doing anything with criminal penalties. There's nothing in this legislation. No one's going to jail. There's $250 in damages that they could receive. The other thing that this legislation does is the way I explained it today. There's no book banning. There's no book burning. This is simply codifying a relocation policy. That's what this is. And it creates a process for both parties. So on the one side, you've got people that say all these materials should be in the library. And on the other side, you say, no, they should not. Both are taxpayers, both have vested interest, both have different worldviews. What we have done is come to a compromise of the parties by keeping all the material will stay in the library, and you're going to relocate it to its rightful location in the library. And that should be satisfying to both parties. And parents can still check that material out. If you want to go grab that and you want to go over that with your child, we kept hearing that, well, parents are in control. Absolutely they are. And they can go grab it from the adult section and they can take it home and they can sit down and have a conversation with their child about it if they choose to do that. So this is a compromise. We sat down with folks from the library community, folks from the school district. We sat down with parents. Everyone had to give and take. Everyone got something that they wanted. One of the things that the school folks wanted, they said, we want you to put in there that this is going to be decided by the Miller test, not by Jaron Crane. I said, well, I'm not deciding any of that. Idaho law 1815-14 that we have in statute from 1972, they did this way back then. These guys kind of knew what they were doing. They established, using the Miller test, what is harmful to minors. And in the legislation, you're going to see that on page 1 of the legislation, subpoint 1 under 6A is Miller test prong number 1. Subpoint 2 is Miller test prong number 2. And on page 2, lines 10 and 11, you're going to see the Miller test prong 3. So the education group got what they wanted, which was the Miller test as the definition and standard for saying what is obscene. We got that to them. The library folks got what they wanted. All the material stays in the library. So we got education. We got the library folks. What about the parents? The parents got what they wanted, and that is the material gets relocated to an adult section of the library. It's a win-win-win all across the board on this legislation.
Yeah, and I thank you for bringing this thing back, because we all remember what happened last session, and that it made it it made its whole way to the governor, which vetoed, and then those that voted for it decided to switch their support for it and uphold the veto. So as this moves forward and goes back to the House, because the veto was upheld in the House. Any word, any feelings that you're getting from those that supported the governor last time in the veto? Where do you think this is headed now? Because now it's going to the floor, and I'm gonna make sure that people out there contact their representatives. But I want to get your feel first for where this is going. Yeah,
the bill is going to pass. I've had an overwhelming number of legislators in both the Senate and the House say, "Hey, can we be a co-sponsor?" I'm like, "Absolutely. Let me get a list started." I've got Pro Tem Winder and I've got Speaker Moyle are both on the SOP of the bill. As co-sponsors on this legislation. This legislation is going to go the distance. I was at breakfast this morning in the cafeteria, and a senator who voted against my bill 314 last year, he said, "Hey, I just read your bill. It's good." I'm like, "Yeah, it's really good." He's like, "I think we can come to an agreement on this." You know, I ran this legislation by a national defense group for lawyers. Don't want to name the group, but they're incredible, very well known. As soon as I mentioned, you're like, I know who exactly that is. They said, Representative Crane, this is the best library bill in the nation. This is something that the Idaho legislature right now can stamp on and say, we did it. We passed the best library bill in the nation. And it's going to be the bill that these other states go and say, hey, let's copy what Idaho's doing.
Yeah, that's great. I heard you mention that today in the hearing as well. So that's really powerful. Powerful support. Okay, Representative Crane, I want to make sure that the people know how to get in contact with you, how to offer their support. We're gonna blast this out and make sure that people contact their legislators to know that they do support this bill. This is all about just protecting children. You know, that's what I see here. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you? How can we follow you?
Go ahead and follow any of my handles for social media, which is at Jaron Crane. I kept them all the same, so you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Jaron Crane, JaronCrane. As far as the best way to reach me, it's going to be through email, jcrane@house.idaho.gov. That's going to be the best way to get a hold of me is through email. I'm on it all the time, checking emails, responding to constituents. So that is the best way. But yes, please give me a follow and share any of the content that I'm putting out regarding the bill. And do contact your legislators. Tell them that you support the legislation. A phone call, I will tell you, is really, really helpful. If you can get a hold of their desk phone by going to the state website, you can look up your respective legislator, call their phone. It's very helpful because we do get a lot of emails. I know I just steered everyone that direction, but it is helpful to have a phone call as well to back up that email.
Absolutely. All right, Representative Crane, thank you again for taking time out to join us, and we'll check in back with you soon.
Great. Thanks for having me, Matt.
All right, take care. All right, folks, we'll be right back. Stick around. More reaction.
There's a saying in Idaho, Esto perpetua. It is forever. But the truth is, nothing lasts forever. Not without a fight. The Gem State is ours to fight for. It is ours to win. For life and liberty. For honesty and integrity. We ride together.
Okay, we are back. We're going to have more reaction on that bill throughout the day here. We've got a couple other representatives coming on and some other interested parties, including which is a new member of the press. I'm going to hammer this throughout each episode, perhaps. But what we're really trying to do here is equalize the narrative and make sure that folks like Jaron Crane can cut through the noise and deliver the signal right to the people. And that's exactly what we see across the board when it comes to some of these more independent and alternative media outlets that are popping up around the state to help deliver the truth and help people stay on track. And so one of those people is Charity Joy, and she is the editor-in-chief, the founder, I'll get it all right in a second here, of the Kootenai Journal, which is a new publication that debuted in Kootenai County in just the last several months. She joins us now. Charity, welcome to the program. I want to get your take on the state, what you think the state of the mainstream Idaho press is, and what brought you to create the Kootenai Journal. And this is no holds barred here, so feel free.
Oh, okay. Well, you only gave me 8 minutes. I don't think I can scratch the surface of the issues with the mainstream press in Idaho, but I'll give it a go. So I first started writing just because it looked and felt like there was a lot of harm being done to our local community via our local press in regards to two specific issues, both having to do with something going on right now in the legislature, North Idaho College, and then our Coeur d'Alene Library Network. And it was beyond belief sitting in these meetings and then reading the reports that were then published about them. And it was a completely twisted narrative. So I just thought the community deserves better than what we are getting. And so that's what got me started writing. And it was just a happy coincidence. There was an online newspaper, which was the Kootenai Journal, started by an amazing young man named Daniel Newman. And he just is pursuing other avenues in life and was ready to have someone else kind of take over the reins. So at the end of September, I purchased it from him and knew right away after talking. I mean, I interact with the community I have for years, especially some of our older generation, and they really like the hard newspaper. So they like the publication in their hands. It's really hard for all of us to kind of filter through what is legitimate online. And so there's a certain credibility attached to it once it's in print. And so I've spent some time recently with gentlemen at the VFW and the American Legion, and several of them have said they've recently canceled their current subscription to what I call the trash press, which is our main media source here in Kootenai County. Have gotten a subscription to the Kootenai Journal because they appreciate the non-biased reporting in the news article. And then they really enjoy the commentary in the opinion section because it's really thought-provoking. It engages people in conversation. It's echoing more of the community values than attacking them. You'll notice that our mainstream press likes to cover and really propagate things like the Pride in the Park events that may not be well attended, but they make it look like it's more popular than it really is. So people are tired of that. They're tired of having their own values attacked when they're just trying to get the news or just trying to have a community dialogue. So that's kind of what started it.
Yeah, well, I commend you, and especially for going into the print aspect of it, which some might think might be risky, but you are exactly right. There is something valuable about having something tangible in your hands that you can read. I mean, you and I may be the last generation that had newspapers and then went to online. And so there is something valuable about having that tangibility, and it sits around. It can sit on your coffee table. It can be shared easily. People can look at it, and it has that, like I said, that really tactile feel of knowing that this is real. Is that what prompted you to make sure that you wanted to do that aspect?
To be effective, you have to. You will always be looked at as the alternative, as alt media. And if you want to compete with the establishment press, you have to compete in where they're at, and they're in print. And that they're in print in magazines, they're in print in newspapers. So there's a generation, our lovely boomer generation, that still effectively control where politics go in Idaho. And they are the ones that have that attached credibility more strongly than, say, younger ones that are very used to online media and have no problem with it. And I'll tell you, it was a substantial learning curve to go to print, and it's quite challenging. So there's a lot that goes into it that I think people understand the importance of getting it right the first time. I can't go in there and change an article like you do online and you see these edited and updated versions. You can't do that in print. So it stands on its own, and you better get it right the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So then let's dig into some of the details here. What has been the reaction? What are stories? What are people following?
The ones that have gotten the most, because I still will have the online newspaper, so it's a backup, and I love to include QR codes in the print editions so that people can share articles readily. So anything you see in print, you're going to also see online. And oh my gosh, I just totally had a brain fart. What was the original question?
What has been the reaction from your new readers, and what have been some of the more popular stories?
I remember where I was going.
Yeah.
The two ones that have gotten them, because you can only see, your digital analytics, right? You can only see what's read there. You can't really see how many people read it in print. So the two ones that get circulated the most and have the most comments are the NIC articles. That has been such a huge divisive issue in Kootenai County for 3 years now. And so the latest one I just published actually is the first in a series that's trying to break it down for the community as to what actually transpired, what happened, without any of the, opinions whatsoever, just chronologically what took place and how did that affect what's going on currently right now today. So the first one only goes through a short section of the drama. I call it the saga, the NIC saga that's gone on at NIC. And it really, what prompted me to write a more comprehensive series is because when I was out just in your local holiday markets that we have here, I would get into conversations with people, and several of them were completely ignorant, and no fault of their own because there hadn't been anything published, to really understand, well, why did NIC ever even get rid of the first president, Rick McClennan? They had no clue. They didn't understand that there had been kind of very restrictive COVID mitigation protocols on campus that was starting to seriously harm the ability to recruit students to come, and students were saying that they were going to leave because of them. So just because people didn't understand those kind of almost basic facts that some of us who are pretty in touch know, I thought maybe they should have a better overview.
Absolutely. I am thrilled that you're covering this because of everything you just laid out there. So I want people to be able to check that out. We really want to make sure that you're successful with this. So tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, how they can subscribe, how they can follow you. Give us all the details before we get out of here.
Absolutely. So kootenaijournal.com is the main website. You can subscribe directly there. You can also download a subscription form and mail it if you like to go old school. There are subscription forms attached to all of the print editions. For now, when we're trying to, bring it to the community's awareness, there's places around town, Black Sheep Sporting Goods. You can get a free copy there. And there's some places downtown, Life Public House, Axe Force One, as well as Migliori, and I probably just said it wrong, that amazing olive oil place on Sherman. Did I say it right, Matt?
I think so. I think you did. I think you nailed it. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, good. I want to have you back because I really want to dig into that to the North Idaho College story.
Absolutely.
Because that's going to be very, and that's going to have a lot of ramifications for the entire state. So it's not just a local thing. This is something that you're digging into that's going to have ramifications, right?
Correct.
Yeah, great. All right, Charity, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Matt.
We'll have you back. All right, everybody. KootenaiJournal.com. We'll be right back with more reaction to that library bill this morning. Thanks.
All Idaho lawmakers swear an oath to support the Idaho and U.S. constitutions. But how's that working out for you? Because not all Idaho lawmakers share the same values. That's where the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge comes in. 10 statements inspired by those two founding documents that are designed to preserve our shared values. Values such as education freedom, safeguarding free speech, defending our protected right to self-defense, and being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. When a lawmaker signs the pledge, they are performing an act of political courage, accepting the challenge to be a champion for our values, and serving with political integrity. To find out if your lawmaker signed the pledge, visit idahopledge.com. Paid for by Citizens Alliance of Idaho. We ride together.
Okay, welcome back. We've had Erin Barnard on from KC Spectator, and it's my pleasure to welcome her back because I can't get enough. We did a podcast together back in the day, and it was always so much fun. So, Erin, welcome back to the program. I want to talk about this library bill. Did you get a chance to watch the hearing this morning?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing. Thanks for having me back. It was interesting. I like to see all the different opinions throughout the state. I found it really interesting that it was the Idaho Education Association Day on the Hill, and this was when the bill was in committee for testimony. So maybe it's a happy accident. I don't know, but that was just ironic. But the interesting aspects I found, the couple of different arguments that were there was, I'm a librarian, so I know what's best. I'm the professional, so trust me to do the work for you. We just saw that a couple years ago with COVID. I'm the medical expert, so you will do what I say because you're not the professional, I am. Similarities there. I also saw the argument that, there's different people around the state who want to be able to get this information for themselves. You have the marginalized group of people that maybe they have questions. The whole bill isn't about marginalized people. It's actually about getting pornography out of hands easily of children. It's just putting in a different section of the library. It's not banning, it's not burning books, nothing like that. The pornography in the children's section that is readily available for the children is just put into another section so that their parents can decide whether or not they want their children to have those books. But the parents have to be the ones that go in there and get those books for the kids. Reminds me of the days, I'm kind of aging myself here, reminds me of the days of Blockbuster Video or a movie rental store. There was always that one room in the back corner with the drape over it that kids were not allowed to go into, because those were the movies that were specifically for adults and pornography. It wasn't a big deal then that only adults were allowed to get those movies. I don't understand why it's a big deal now where only adults are the ones that are able to check out these books at the library. It's still the parents' right and duty to know what their kids are reading. And if their kids do have questions, it's definitely the right of the parents to go get those books for the kids. This bill is just saying we just want to be able to have the parents get those books for the kids, not the children getting those books for themselves.
Right. And to use your analogy with the video store, there was the back room with the drape, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that had hardcore things that absolutely should not be in the hands of children. But the rest of the store also had, among the drama or the comedy, R-rated movies, right? And those R-rated movies didn't even have mostly didn't have graphic images on them, but they were rated and they had a rating. And if they were brought to the counter, that the store owner or whoever was working there would deny the children, hey, you shouldn't have that movie. Right now, there's no ratings so much on books in libraries, and any kid can just pick up a book off the shelf. Libraries don't have Penthouse and Playboy, but they do have other graphic content that you can't tell by looking at its cover. And so this seems to be a way to help, equalize that situation that you so brilliantly pointed out there with the video store.
Yeah, and the ratings online are actually really interesting. If you go try to do your due diligence and go to Amazon or go to Goodreads and kind of understand where the book is coming from, you still don't get the whole picture of what is going on in the books. And that's where I really appreciate Mariana Cochran and what she does with the Clean Books for Kids, is she actually goes and checks out these books from the library, reads them, and then goes, hey, this one isn't so great. Here's the pages where it's not so great for you to decide. And then that's where she started her advocacy to try to get these books out of the children's section of the libraries and put them into the adult sections so that the adults had to check them out. And, it happens still in movie theaters to this day. A child cannot go to a rated R movie without an adult present. So I don't know why it's such a big deal to have that in the library. I mean, if anyone off the streets gives one of these books to a child, that person is then arrested and fined and, could have jail time for a little bit. Why are librarians and schools different in that regard, in the pornography aspect of it?
I don't know.
Sex education is, an opt-in or opt-out program that parents do have to approve. So that's totally different. We're not talking about sex education. We're talking about the visual pornography, the paragraphs of incest and what you're going to do to your father. There's books that have that in there that's readily available to children. We don't need to go into that. Clean Books for Kids has all of those books laid out, right, so anyone can go to their website and check out what's going on.
Yeah, I want to play a clip from you. We cut this out from today's hearing. Julianne Young, Representative Julianne Young out of Blackfoot, out there in East Idaho, she kept asking these librarians and some of these people that were advocating against the bill. She kept asking them a specific question. Do we have that clip? Can we show that?
Curious to know, do you believe that graphic sexual content is harmful to minors?
Mary?
Boy, that's a tough one because I'm not sure who's defining graphic sexual content. So I'm not sure I'd be able to answer that clearly for you.
I'm going to ask the same question again that I asked earlier. Do you believe that graphic sexual content is harmful to minors?
Mr. Prescott?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah, so the last guy said yes, plainly, and the first one had a problem defining what that is. And even if to say, well, if you were to define it, would you find it objectionable for children to see that stuff? I thought that was such a great line of questioning to put these people on the spot to say whether or not they even think that graphic sexual material being displayed in front of children is harmful. What do you think? What do you make of some of these responses?
Well, I know that everyone's definition of graphic sexual content could be different, but I'm pretty sure that's laid out in the Idaho statute about what is considered sexual content. So even if we just went back onto those definitions, when you take some of these books that are listed out, say on the Clean Books for Kids website that's readily available to children, there is a huge disconnect between maybe the librarian's definition and the Idaho state statute and those books that they are putting out on the shelves do not fall under a proper graphics for children that's very graphic. I can't even, there's things that I want to say that I can't because we are on live, but
No, that's
but
understood.
it goes back, the part that we don't hear about, and actually someone did testify about it today, is the mental trauma that happens to these children when they are exposed to sexual content at a young age. And that's not debatable. Like, we see it all the time, and there's personal stuff that happens in these children's lives where they're exposed to this stuff, and it follows them forever. And I can tell you from experience.
Yeah, you can't unsee it. Yeah.
And so
Aaron, we have to go real quick,
yeah.
but I want to hold you over after the next segment, and we'll have you back. Okay, great?
Sounds good.
All right, awesome. All right, we will be right back. We have Representative Elaine Price coming on to discuss one of her bills, and maybe we'll get her reaction to the library bill as well. But we'll be back right after this.
There's a saying in Idaho, Esto perpetua. It is forever. But the truth is, nothing lasts forever. Not without a fight. The Gem State is ours to fight for. It is ours to win. For life and liberty. For honesty and integrity. We ride together.
Okay, thanks for sticking with us. It's the top of the hour here, noon in Boise, 11 o'clock in North Idaho. And I am pleased to welcome Representative Elaine Price. She is also a member of the Idaho Freedom Caucus. She's out of Legislative District 4. And I know she has a bill that is seeking to repeal some what they call dead law, or an amendment that is no longer relevant to our state that's in our Constitution. Representative Price, welcome to the program. What can you explain? What's your big pitch about this bill that you've got going?
Matt, thanks for having me. The big push with the Blaine Amendment is that this amendment was initiated by somebody who was anti-Catholic, anti-immigrant, and it has its root deep in bigotry. And that does not reflect our state. So we are looking to repeal Article 9, Section 5 of the Idaho Constitution. The big thing that we have to remember is that this legislation is looking to put this in front of the voters. The voters are the one who actually decide whether we repeal this or not. So this is giving the voters the choice to repeal this section of our Constitution.
Okay, I see. So because it is part of the literal Constitution, your bill would simply be able to put this to the voters.
That's correct. It would be on the ballot November of this year to repeal it. Okay.
And can you give us now, when you, I guess when it comes to, you explained that there was a reason why that this was put into our Constitution, and that it had to do something with mainly anti-bigotry against Catholics or religion, maybe religion in general. But what is because this amendment exists, what is it barring the legislature or Idaho from doing?
The actual Constitution says that we cannot give public money to, and they call it sectarian organizations, and it's focused on schools. So we can't give public money to religious schools. So, and when I've been studying up on this, and the information I read this weekend specifically says that if you base it solely on religion, then it's unconstitutional. And that's what they decided in the case of Montana v. Espinoza, I think is what it was. And because it's based strictly on religion as the reason why they're not allowing public funds to go to these schools, then that is unconstitutional. It's discrimination is what it is.
Yeah, well, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but does the state of Idaho give money to colleges that have religious affiliations?
Well, and that's interesting because I wanted to get specifics on it so that when I'm speaking, I'm giving facts. But the examples are like Pell Grants, so that's federal money that goes to any school that they choose. There's other examples as well. You just think about, I think about St. Vincent de Paul in our area that helps with housing, Section 8 housing. I'm pretty sure taxpayers' money is going to help them. So, but that's not a school. So I just think it's something that I need to investigate a little bit more and have facts and say, private schools, are we giving them money? If we're giving private schools money, then we can't discriminate just strictly based on religion for other private schools that are religious.
Right. So if we're paying, if the state is giving private schools money for one thing, and then a parent says, well, maybe can I get some government money to help me go to private schools that might be a religious school, you're saying that there's a conflict here, and this Blaine amendment, should we hopefully get removed, we can at least explore this a little bit further, because the state may already be violating this amendment anyway. So it does sound very messy. So I'm glad I'm glad you're bringing this forward. I know the hearing that you just had was a print hearing, so this will go before committee soon. Which committee will this be before?
This is going through state affairs.
Affairs, okay.
Yeah, so the same committee that the library bill just went through. So
right, great segue. So can I get your quick reaction on that library bill this morning? Have you had a chance to read it or hear about it?
Oh yeah, I've read it, and I was in committee while it was going on. But I'm pleased to hear that it passed out of committee, that we'll be hearing it on the floor. I just lean on the side of what you were just discussing. If this material is in a place where a minor can see it or pick it up and read it before the parent realizes what they have, you can't undo that. You can't erase what they saw and what they read. And I am totally for the parent making a choice of what their child reads. But if it's in a library where a child can see it without the parent realizing it, then that's not parental choice. That's the library deciding that the child sees this subject matter.
Yeah. Yeah, well put. All right. Representative Price, thank you so much for joining us. Real quick, you have a social media or any place that people can follow you or get in touch with you?
Yes, I do have a Facebook, and I also have a Twitter account, although I will be the first to admit I'm not very social media savvy. So.
All right. Well, we'll find you the more traditional ways and look on your legislative site and reach out to you there.
All right. Thank you, Matt.
Good. Yeah, thank you for coming on. We'll have you back. All right, folks. Let's see. I want to bring back, if she's still around, Miss Erin Barnard back to talk a little bit more about. I want you to be able to finish your thought that you had on the library bill, and then I'll shift gears in a little bit on something else. But
I can't remember what my thought was on the library bill, so apparently it wasn't important enough for me to commit it to memory. So we'll just go on.
Well, then let me prompt you a little bit, because okay. I thought when we were watching when we were watching the public give their comment, which you have extensive experience watching and listening to public comment by the various meetings that you're going to, there sometimes seems to be a disconnect between what is being proposed and what the people are actually commenting on. And you saw a lot of folks who were advocating against the bill stand up and say, even though I feel like a couple people still said that they were going to ban books or censor books, even though Representative Crane and the bill explicitly says that they're not going to. This isn't about banning books. This is simply about putting it out of reach of children. What is it with certain folks that stand up and don't address the real issue?
Well, you're taught in school a couple of different things. One, to be able to ask your question in multiple different ways, because you will get those people that don't understand the question at the first time around. So you got to ask it in another way that they may be able to understand it. And I think that's what happened in this particular case, because like Rep. Young had asked a couple of different people, should this sexually graphic content be allowed to children? She got a range of answers, and a lot of them didn't address the question itself. There was a question that was asked to a teenager who worked at one of the county libraries. I can't remember which one down south, but she was asked a question: should children be able to get this information, or should teenagers be allowed to give this information to the children, if they worked at the library? And she didn't answer the question. She said, "My teammates and I, who were all 16 when we started, we love our jobs." That's great that you love your job, but should you be able to give this graphic sexual content? Should you be able to carry it around, and then should you be able to give it to children? And so sometimes it just takes a little bit of extra work to try to get the point of your question across. You do it to me all the time, so if you can do it to me, they can do it.
Right.
It's fine. Whatever.
Right. No, absolutely. And when we just had Representative Price on, and we were talking earlier about these things that you can't unsee, and not to get too personal, but I remember being a child and seeing something in the streets that really affected me, and I didn't know what I was looking at, but I knew it was disturbing. And when you think about the idea of some of this content that was shared extensively last year on social media, I mean, some people had their accounts suspended or banned because they were sharing some of the content that was in these books. You'd have people show up to school board meetings or library board meetings and hold up pages from books that they found on the shelves, and then they were told that they couldn't share that stuff in public because it might offend some people. Yet we just give people a pass. We're just giving librarians and libraries a pass for having this stuff on the shelf. I mean, children cannot unsee something that is just so graphically disturbing. And it really begs the question that, and some may argue that this new version of this bill doesn't go far enough. But there has to be a negotiation. There has to be some sort of compromise, as long as the teeth of the bill remains. And I believe it's looking like it is here. And we'll get some more reaction on this in a minute. But any final thoughts on where you think this bill is headed? Do you think it sails? Do you think the governor signs it? What do you think?
Well, nothing really ever sails unless it comes directly from the governor himself. But I think we were so close to getting this passed last session, that this has the opportunity to get back to the governor's desk again. As we heard in committee, Representative Crane was talking about how the governor had called him when he vetoed his bill last session and said, these are the points that the reasons why I'm vetoing this bill. So Representative Crane adjusted it a little bit to ensure that those are not reasons why the governor vetoes it this year. But last year, we also had cowardly turncoats who turned their votes after the governor's veto. So the veto stayed. We'll see if that happens again. If it gets to the governor's desk and he vetoes it for whatever reason, we'll see if those certain representatives and senators change their votes again. And it's election season. So it's time to get those people out.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I want to shift gears here for the last, just for a couple of minutes here, because you are also a homeschooling mom, and I don't want to let Representative Stephanie Mickelson's comment slide, because we did a couple segments on this last week. And again, the more I posted this, the more I watched this video over and over again and listened to her remarks, where she basically says, she implies that homeschooling moms or families might be fraudsters in the sense that they would take a tax credit and then a couple weeks later just dump their kids into public school. And I quote, dump their kids into public school, as if the public school is a city dump or a landfill of some sort where you just dump your children into. So she might be tipping her hat in a way she doesn't intend to. And then she goes on to talk about homeschooling students growing up to be functional adults. Now, you have children who have been homeschooled, and I believe they're teetering on adulthood. What is your reaction to some of these remarks?
So I have a daughter who just turned 18 a few months ago, and then a son who just turned 15. So they are on the verge of being adults. And I find that functioning adults comment hilarious, because some of the most wildly intelligent adults, and teenagers and children for that matter, come from the homeschool background. And the reason is because they have the opportunity to figure out how things work and how to get things done themselves. So a lot of small business owners, the people who actually take action and get things done, are homeschooling or from homeschooling families. I was a public school kid. My husband was a homeschool kid. And so it was kind of back and forth in our house for a long time until I finally said, hey, I can do it. I can be the teacher for my kids. We are learning how to figure it out together. And that is the key to homeschooling. And the functional adults comment is so funny, because just the next day we saw that teenage school board member from Boise attack Ron DeSantis, or get attacked, or no, he did the attacking at a Ron DeSantis rally in Iowa. And my question was, is that the functional adult that Mickelson wants in a public school? Or I don't know, because he's a public school kid. He's the one doing the violent attacking. So I don't know, or alleged attacking, whatever. But yeah,
right,
we saw
right.
the pictures. He's the disruption, I guess. But
yeah.
So if that's her definition of a functioning adult, no thanks, I'll pass.
Right. Okay. Well, all right. Aaron, thanks so much again for joining us. Please let everybody know how they can follow you, how they can get in touch with you, and share your stuff.
Absolutely. Matt, it's always a pleasure to be here. You can find me at kcspectator.com. Everything is at kcspectator. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I post as much as possible, but again, I am a homeschooling mom, as well as I work part-time too, and try to go to as many meetings as possible on Telegram. So you can find me at all of those places. And really, my goal is to get you to go to meetings so you can understand yourself what's going on. Like Charity said in the previous segment, NIC is a rat's nest right now, and we need all the people we can to go down to the meetings and understand what is happening in person, because it's totally different than watching online. So I hope to see everyone at meetings, and I'll see you online.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, Aaron, for joining us. Folks, we have coming up Senator Cindy Carlson with us. So we will take a short break, get situated for that, and we'll be right back.
All Idaho lawmakers swear an oath to support the Idaho and U.S. constitutions. But how's that working out for you? Because not all Idaho lawmakers share the same values. That's where the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge comes in. 10 statements inspired by those two founding documents that are designed to preserve our shared values. Values such as education freedom, safeguarding free speech, defending our protected right to self-defense, and being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. When a lawmaker signs the pledge, they are performing an act of political courage, accepting the challenge to be a champion for our values, and serving with political integrity. To find out if your lawmaker signed the pledge, visit idahopledge.com. Paid for by Citizens Alliance of Idaho. We ride together.
Okay, more reaction on the library bill that passed the House State Affairs Committee today. That's House Bill 385. Uh-oh. I got this. I messed this up last week, but I think it's 385. or 4. Maybe the guys will tell me if it's 4 or 5. Anyway, it's the library bill, as it's known. Representative Crane brought it to the committee today. There was about 2 hours of public testimony or so, and before it passed the House State Affairs Committee, and will be headed to the House. We have Senator Cindy Carlson, who also sits on the Senate Education Committee, and I know that this particular issue is of importance to her and her constituents, and so I'm really thrilled to invite her onto the program to get her reaction and what she thinks the House might do and what happens when it gets to the Senate. So, Representative Carlson, welcome to the program. Have you had a chance to hear about this bill?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Great. What are your thoughts on it? What do you think so far?
I think it's in my opinion, it doesn't go far enough, but it's a good compromise, and I believe that we will pass this one through the legislature.
And last session, Governor Little vetoed it, and then it wasn't overwritten in the if that's the right term in the House. Do you think the governor is going to have a hard time with this? It sounded like Representative Crane went to the governor and wanted to address some of his issues. Do you think that was the compromise that you're looking at here?
Yeah, we've made a couple of compromises. One is lowering the damages to $250 from $2,500 to $250, and then giving a 30-day window for the parent to basically complain, and then the school, the institution to address the issue. So I believe that 30-day window is actually what a lot of people were looking for.
Yeah. When it comes to that 30-day window, we heard some librarian or library board members speak today at the public hearing saying that they already have something like that in place at their library. Is this something that you just want codified into law, into statute, or do you think it's already? I don't think you already think that things are working, but if some libraries are already saying that they do have something like this, how effective do you think these 30-day notices are going to be?
Well, if we put it into law, it's going to require them to do that job. Right now we have libraries throughout the state sort of doing their own thing. This will basically state that this is what they need to do, and they need to put it up, and it needs to, it just puts boundaries around it so that we just don't have a free-for-all. Because right now we have a free-for-all. There's some libraries doing something, there's some doing nothing. It gives the parents and the citizens of our state a chance to actually deal with the issue if they find material there, and yeah. It's going to be a hard push for any parent that decides to actually identify the problem and go after somebody, because it's going to be hard for parents, but it'll, in the end, I believe it's going to keep the school districts and the public libraries in check.
You represent one of the larger districts in Idaho here, in terms of area. During the off session after the veto happened, what was the reaction that you had from constituents across your district?
Most of the people in my district were not happy that it was vetoed. They want this, and I live in a pretty conservative district, and for the most part, most people really want this.
For those folks that say, the parents should be the ones who are monitoring their children when they're in the library, and if a child picks up a book and naturally is put off by what they read or what they looked at, that they can just remember to not pick up that author's books again. What are some of the answers to those things? Because as I've said throughout the program today, kids can't unsee things, and parents also can't be hovering over their children 24/7. So, what do you say to those folks that make those arguments?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the public libraries. The public libraries, for the most part, are being utilized by a lot of homeschoolers. And those homeschool parents, yes, it's their job to make sure that their students and their kids are looking at the right thing, but we're trying to give them independence, right? We're trying to give them independence to go to the public library and do research. And the parent shouldn't, if the parent has five kids or 4 kids, they should be able to let them loose in the library and know that the information they're going to find is not going to be something that they have to monitor. When you get to the school libraries, parents are not able to be at schools. And so they have to trust the institution that they're not giving their students, their children, information that they wouldn't want them to know. So it's twofold. So anyway, that's where we're at.
Yeah. No, that's great. All right. Well, everybody seems to expect that this is going to pass the House and then it'll head over to the Senate and go through one of the committees. Maybe it goes through education. Maybe it goes through the state affairs on that side. But do you feel like this has got a good chance in the Senate?
I do. I think it'll. I think last year this whole year has been an eye opener to a lot of people throughout our state. A lot of people they were told that this stuff is not in our libraries. It is there. When people actually go and look in their libraries, they're finding it. And so they've basically been lied to. And so our senators, I believe that they will push this through and send the bill to the governor for signature.
Great. All right. Senator Carlson, how can people get in touch with you and follow you and support your efforts?
Well, I have a Substack newsletter that I do. I'm not that active on Facebook, but I do check it once in a while, and I do have a Twitter account. These are all things that these are skills that I did not need in my previous life as a business owner. And so I would just like to tell people, bear with me. I do answer emails, but this is all thing. I was a very successful business owner, still own my businesses. So the learning curve is pretty steep, but I'm working on it.
Well,
be patient.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I thank you for joining us. This is good. We'll have you back and we'll make sure that people can follow you and reach out to you, even in the more traditional manners as well. So
thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, folks. Wow. Okay, great. I mean, this is wow. I'm really happy that we were able to book Representative Crane, Representative Price, and Senator Carlson to get their reactions to the news that hit today that was breaking, just a half hour or so before the show started. And my thanks to Charity and Aaron for bringing on their perspective as well. Folks, if you want to support what Idaho Signal is doing, if you want to make sure that we stay on the air, I invite you to go to idahosignal.com, where you can find out how you can support us and keep us chugging along here. This week it's just Monday. I'm already exhausted. I feel like I don't know what to expect tomorrow, but you can go to the legislative sites, look up the calendars of what's happening. You can head over to Citizens Alliance Idaho.org and follow the live streams of what's happening in the House and the Senate. There's many ways to stay involved. There's many of groups out there that are providing real-time information and commentary on what is going on. And I suggest that if you are watching this show and you want to stay connected to those things, to just connect on social media, subscribe to the newsletters that are being presented your way, and stay in contact with your legislator. The legislature does not operate unless we stay involved. And I mean, they do operate, but they don't operate the way we want them to unless we are involved. And that's what working for the people is supposed to do. There's a lot of folks that get elected, not just at the state level, but in all parts of government, from the city all the way up to the federal, that think when they get elected to office that their role then becomes to work for the government or work for the agency and just spend our money on whatever pet projects or whatever they think is best for the people. And then there are those that get elected that understand that they were elected to serve the people and their constituents, and more importantly, their voters. There's a lot of chatter out there about when someone gets elected that they don't have a duty to respond and listen to the voters that elected them into office. Do they represent their entire constituency? Absolutely. But they were voted for a reason. And one of those reasons is to follow the constitutions of the Idaho and the United States, but also to reflect the values of the community and why they were elected. And so that can only happen if you stay involved. So follow Idaho Signal, follow Citizens Alliance of Idaho, and many of the other great folks. And we're going to have some of our allies and folks who are fighting the good fight on the program throughout the session here. So if you're watching and you want to be on, I want to talk to you. Let's send me a note at signal@citizensallianceidaho.org. And we'll talk. We'll have you on. So thank you again for being here. We're over the mark. We'll see you tomorrow.
This bill, I think, it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.